Okay, so this is going to be an after action report. Usually, when I do these, it's usually a written report. And if a game has a replay feature, then I'll use the replay and make a video out of that. But because of the nature of this game and the nature of this operation in particular, I'm going to have to do it old school and do it as a PowerPoint presentation. And this one's going to be long. There's no doubt about that. There's no way around this, to be honest. But yeah, this is how it's going to be. So after action report. So for those who don't know, the way I do this is that I try to write the report immediately after the operation. In this case, I'm recording on the 4th of November. Everything here that happened was on the 3rd of November, so it was the day after, basically. I haven't consulted or discussed what happened with anybody else. So everything here is what I recall and I remember as it happened from my perspective. And I will go through what I was thinking in my head, the thought process as we went on this mission, basically. So I haven't discussed or talked to anybody about what their perspectives are. I'm just going to give my point of view from here. And then hopefully after this, if anybody wants to discuss it, we can then work out the finer points of what I got right or what I saw may have been correct or incorrect, that sort of thing. So yeah, let's begin. So we'll start off with the strategic and operational information. So prior to 3rd of November, when we decided to actually launch the missile, there was a planned missile operation before that. The missile was fielded and prepped several days before the 3rd. That operation never came to fruition because there was a complete miscommunication, breakdown in communication, basically, in regiment. As far as I was able to see, I wasn't a part of the missile team at this point. Actually, I wasn't supposed to be part of this at all. This was, I'll explain why, but yeah, I wasn't even supposed to be here for this, let alone for the one before. But we fielded the missile and we were not able to fire it in time. So we had to reconstruct the missile. Gotta give big props to Ralph, who is basically chief engineer of that. He built the whole base, and he's the one that has to keep track of the fuel and whatnot. So yeah, Ralph, good going. Sorry we couldn't get the missile off, but yeah, right there we can see that there have been some problems with conducting the missile operation, basically. So on the 3rd, we managed to get everybody on. By everybody, I mean most of the active members in the active regular members in the regiment. And this is necessary because we need 10 guys to be at the missile site and one guy that's with the radio backpack to spot the target to give the targeting information to launch the missile. So theoretically, we only need 11, but of course, we want to make sure it gets done properly. So the way that Silver had it planned out was that we had a small team to go in behind enemy lines with the spotter and keep the minimum of the 10 in the missile base. Now, we should start off with the recon runs that were conducted just prior to the operation. So at the time, which was about 5 p.m. my time in the UK, which just so happens to be the universal coordinated time. So I'm just going to use that as the standard sort of like timing conventions in the reports. It was around 5 o'clock my time when Silver got online and started doing the recon runs, which right there is the biggest problem. Well, one of the biggest problems. There's going to be a lot more bigger problems that I'm going to discuss here. But right there is all of the recon and the intelligence that we were going to base this off was being done just prior to the launch, basically. It was on the exact same day. The construction of the missile and the targets that were selected, that had all been done days and actually like a week prior, I believe. I think this was all planned before I even joined the regiment at this point. But you can see like there's a disconnect there in terms of the time and effort spent into each of the different phases of this operation. the logistics and planning of setting up the missile, setting up the base of the missile, selecting the targets, how our commanders, Silver, and the rest of the officers, how they were discussing with the other regiments, because this ended up being a multi-regiment operation, this specific one that we conducted on the 3rd. This all had to be planned, but for the final execution of phase, it was based off basically 5 hours of work just prior to the operation H hour. So that right there is that ain't too good. um, and here's the bigger problem is that Silver at the time was going to do it all by himself. You see, the only reason I was online because I was running garrison supply runs with Coco, and when I saw the message pop up and I saw that the operation was actually going to be going on that evening, I figured, okay, I'm here, might as well just have a look, because I'm new to the game and I just want to learn as much as I possibly can, as quickly as I can, so that I can, be more involved and help out a lot more. So the only reason I was there, and the only reason why I tagged along, was because I've been helping Ralph try build the missile base, and I've taken it on my own uh, my own initiative to try do the paperwork on the garrison supplies, because the missile base, the relic base, and Evil Eye, they take quite a lot of garrison supplies, and we've been having problems trying to supply all of our bases really. And I know quite a few of the Logi guys now because I've been playing logistics for basically the last 6 days nonstop. I know most of the Logi guys. I know most of them. They've been having problems trying to keep up with the garrison supplies, so I'm just trying to help out there. So in my mind, I'm just thinking to myself, okay, I'm here. Silver needs help. I don't know anything about doing recon. I don't know anything about the missile. I haven't even been in a proper fight at this point. I think I've only been in one firefight in the last 6 days I've been playing this game. And that's all the experience I have in the game. But I've been helping out all these guys and all the rest of the guys that have been more invested in terms of the time and commitment to the missile. I felt like, we've paid, we need to collect on something. And this has been going on for days at this point. So I'm going to go in, help Silver any way I can, see how that goes. So that's the only reason why I was there. So yeah, that right there, big problem. Silver basically was the only one that was part of the officer group in our regiment, was there doing the work to try get the information. So there's a problem there. Now, the logistics regarding the recon runs and the spotter team. Actually, no, before that, if I just go back to that previous point I was trying to make, basically I'm trying to say that there was a really more miscommunication, a disconnect between most of the members, and it kind of shows that there was no delegation of command or authority to anybody else in the regiment. It was the commander who hopped on, nobody else was there, and he didn't ask anybody else. Well, he did ask, but the way that most of the people in the regiment that I've seen so far on Discord, the way they ask is just to just put an open question out there and expect somebody to answer. That's not really a good way to get things going, really. And there's not a lot of people online that are that invested in the game in the regiment at this point in time. Yeah, so that's something I thought needed to be raised for that. So now on to the second point. The logistics that were ran for the final phase of the operation here. So for both the recon runs that me and Silver were doing, and ultimately the runs for the spotter team, basically, to go in and launch the nuke, none of that was set up. As far as I know, that was not planned at all. Everything that we used for the initial recon runs that started at 5 o'clock here, and the equipment that we used at the H hour for 11:45. Oh, by the way, we didn't exactly leave at 11:45. We actually exceeded that time, so there was problems there as well. But the equipment and the logistics for the final phase of operation, none of that had been planned. All the equipment that we used were either from the QRF pool, or we just got it from the stockpiles there and then. I was direct messaging Jessix as we were uh, getting the briefing going at about midnight at that time when we finally kicked off the operation, and I was trying to get Jessix to bring up contingency equipment just in the event that everything goes wrong, and things did go wrong. And sadly, the way that we were told the mechanics for launching the nuke was that he couldn't leave the site, which I don't think was true. I think that's what Jessix found out later on, and he's been telling me. So he could have. There was an opportunity there to try enacting a contingency plan basically, and I was trying to do that, but it didn't go quite as well. But yeah, all the equipment that was whatever we found that just happened to be there. If they wasn't there, I mean, we just got lucky in that regard. So yeah, that was a big problem. Now, with making the initial recon run, only one person actually made it to both sites. So the targets that were selected, only the officers knew. At this point in time, I wasn't even part of any of the planning. I only found out right then, like, oh, these are the targets, okay. And for those that were there for the final run, they will know that I didn't quite know where to aim. I knew kind of like the general points for the aiming points if we wanted to actually drop the nuke when we're looking through the binoculars on the site. I only knew a general idea because it wasn't expected that I was going to be firing the missile, which ended up being me for the last one. I ended up having to do it. But only one person out of the entire team at that point in time had actually been on site on both sites. That right there is pretty bad. I guess from that point, you just say that it needed to be established. This was the primary target. This was the secondary target. Which of the buildings on the sites are the ones that we need to prioritize? And basically, a screenshot of some kind would have been very helpful. And just like, put an X that this is the exact aiming point that we need to drop the nuke. Basically, uh, I guess I'm only saying this because I'm inexperienced and I've never done this before. That's what I would have liked. I'm pretty sure if there was a more experienced player that had managed to get in there behind uh, and had managed to aim the nuke, basically, he doesn't need that kind of like specific, detailed information. But it would be nice to have, I think. So that is yeah, okay. Hang on, give me a second. Got my notes here. Okay, so that's all the broad kind of like information that I wanted to cover first. Now I'll go into what actually happened in the mission. So I've got all the screenshots here with the routes taken. Now the screenshots here that I'm showing and the route that I've marked. Let me get the pointer out here. So the route that I marked out here in red is the route that I took for my initial recon run, the successful recon run, because me and Silver, we did multiple. I think between us both, we did 5 or 6 runs, and 4 of those we managed to get into the target area, basically. And that's both Ashfield and Red River. We managed to get into both hexes. So kind of like ignore the red lines. I'll explain when it becomes relevant. But for the initial recon runs that were conducted, what happened is that Silver's entry point into enemy territory was around this area here in Amethyst and Stray. So he was focusing on this area here. Now, for what I gather is that the route that we took on the first run was a route that he actually hadn't taken. He had only taken routes that were around the route that we would eventually take on the first run. So right there is like a very big problem because here we are, we've planned this all out, and we're making changes to the plan minutes before we go in. That right there is like basic strategy that goes out the window. It's like number one thing that everyone gets taught not to do. and we did it. So that was a big problem there. What happened was is that we got into Amethyst, and basically there's like a ledge here in the bulwark area on the river, and we tried to cross that. Now it's not really possible with the Jeeps. And that was another thing that I have to mention is that the recon runs that were conducted, I did it with Jeeps. I did the whole thing with Jeeps, and I got a lot of experience driving the Jeep from this one operation. Um, all the routes I took in the initial recon runs were all in Jeeps, and finally, when we did conduct the mission, I did in Jeeps. Silver, I'm pretty sure, did it all on foot. So we have a problem there. Routes that we take on foot and in vehicles, they're not the same. You can't use the same information and expect it to go the same way. What we tried to do, what Silver tried to do, is that he tried to cross that. What did I say? It's just a ledge basically at the bulwark on the river. Try to cross that with a vehicle, which you just can't do basically. You can't get in that way. So that was the first snag we hit. After that, we then tried to cross this bridge here, which is a railway bridge, and our vehicles can't cross that because game mechanics reason wise. So that had to go out the window a little bit, and so we had to cross the bridge that was just south here. Actually, it's kind of hard to see in the screenshot, but the railway bridge is where my pointer is right now, and the actual vehicle bridge is where my pointer is here. So we had to cross that and then go in. And as we reached into this area here, Clotho's Refuge, we ran into basically a bunker base and we got shot up. And that's where we lost our vehicles. And from then on, we had to try and make a break through the river. We built a motorboat. We sailed up the river all the way up to the second bridge here, I believe, got off, and then started walking all the way to the target. At this point, for those who don't know, the primary target is Ashfield. Later on, we switched to a secondary target, which is Cannon Smoke in Red River. So this is the first part in the first run where everything goes wrong. Now, I was thinking to myself at this point, after we had lost both our vehicles, that we should just restart because time is of the essence. All right. The whole point of the operation was that we do this in conjunction with the CHC multi-regiment armor push. The idea is that while they're trying to conduct their massive assault and get their nukes off, that serves as the distraction for us to go in and hit Ashfields or Cannon Smoke. So time basically was of the essence. And Ian was on the Discord call, and he was basically reminding us that for almost a full hour straight. And he had a point. He had a point, but I didn't say anything. I probably should have said something, but I think the way I was thinking is that it's best not to undermine any kind of like authority with Silver, who was leading the mission at this point. Partly because only me and Silver had made it in the initial run, and we had Zek and Steel with us, and I didn't want to confuse them any further than how much confused we were at this point because we had been shot up. We were pretty disorganized. And credit to Silver is that he got us all together, and he actually did get us all the way. Well, not all of us, but he did get to the target eventually as he walked across the enemy territory here. And that is a very impressive feat, considering how bad of a start we got in here. That is very, very, very impressive. Very good. So I didn't say anything, and they did eventually get to the target. So maybe it was okay, maybe not. But I was thinking to myself that we could have just restarted here, killed ourselves, respawned, re-equip ourselves. There were still a couple of Jeeps still available, and these were the Jeeps that we ended up using in the second run, the second recon run. There was plenty of time that we could have come back, gone in, and gone my route. So the route that I took for my recon runs and the route that we eventually took for the final attempt was to go up through here. Now, the only reason why I know about this is because a day prior, I had gone for a recon run in the salt farms where the storm cannons are. So I had already scouted out Bryan Glen, salt farms, and the Stray, and I knew that there was literally nothing here. Um, I did tell Silver this prior to the operation, but it's his call how he wants to conduct it because he's in command. So we ended up going through this, and this didn't work out well at all. But yeah, going through East March and into Bryan Glen on this northwest corner here is completely open, and it stayed open throughout the entire night, throughout the entire operation. There was no battle, there was no front line, no operation on our side or the enemy side was conducted in this entire area here, completely open. So I probably could have communicated that better to everybody, I suppose. That's probably the biggest mistake on my part there. I should have pressed that just a little bit harder. But that was how it went down. So that was the first recon run. That's where pretty much everything went wrong. Uh, the argument here to be made is that if we had been able to keep the Jeeps alive, if we had not gone this route and gone this other route, we would have been able to get on target on time, which basically on time in our timetable is before the armor column hits all the way, basically. However, events transpired in a different way. Now, if we look here at this screenshot here, so Silver posted this in the Discord server prior to the whole operation. And this is supposedly the route that the armor column is supposed to take. They're supposed to go up on the north of the Heartlands here, and then enter into Westgate to launch the nuke here. This is not what happened. They ended up going the south of Heartlands, which if we come back to this here, the armor column ended up coming down this hex, right along the southern edge here, and then up. All right. Now this defeats the whole purpose of using them as a distraction, because now all the attention is at our entry point, which is in this area right here. This intersection is basically our entry point to either Ashfields or Red River. This bridge right here is basically the only entry point that we could get into Ashfields or Red River. And this is where the armor column ended up being. And what happened here is, and this is where me and Zek ended up dying in the first recon run, is that Warden QRF was right here at this intersection as we jumped. They had silver hands waiting right there, and we got shot up. And it wasn't just us that got shot up. The armor column also was complaining as we were trying to enlist some of the help to deal with the rifle garrisons and pillboxes across the bridge. You know, nobody wanted to do it because they got shot up. So right there, I don't know what happened there, and I mean, it should have been something that we should have been told. That was a massive change in the route, because this is an entire hex we're talking about, from the northern edge to the southern edge. That's a whole hex that they went a different route. It's very, very, very peculiar. But yeah, the whole idea of having the armor column as a distraction, as it later turned out, well, it backfired very, very bigly. So yeah, so even if we had kept on the timetable, probably would have gone just about the same way as it did. So that's how that happened. Now, after me and Zek died, the way it happened is because I wasn't there, I was dead, and I was busy trying to get another Jeep going. So for those who don't know, there were actually 3 attempts at this. The first one was this first, where it was me, Silver, Zek, and Steel. We had the Odyssey, when they had the Icarus, and we lost them at the entry point in Clotho's Refuge. After I died here, I immediately respawned back at the main oil facility, and I got another Jeep. I got an Argonaut. I got it loaded up. I loaded myself up, and then went again for it. And my run didn't end well at all. I got intercepted around here, just north of this deep law post, I think is the name. Yeah, I ran into heavy tank column, super heavy tank column actually. I posted the clip in the Rocket Ops there if anybody wants to see me get shot up real bad. But yeah, I was really unlucky. I managed to get into ash fields around this point, but doesn't matter. That second one was more banking more on luck than strategy at that point. But anyway, back to the first recon run. Silver and Steel, yes, they managed to get in. They managed to bypass the QRF, the Warden QRF, cross across the bridge, I believe, and then take the route that is seen here. However, the difference is to enter Ashfields, you go west from this point onwards, not east into Red River. There's a point on this cliff here where my pointer is, where you can actually drop down without taking any fall damage. So that was the route they took, and this is the route that I had taken earlier in the recon run and managed to make it to the targeting point, which is not the targeting point, sorry, the spawning point. Targeting point was somewhere right in the middle, so where we could hit all the infrastructure here, the town base, the engineering center, refinery, factories, all that was in the middle, and you could spot that from this outcrop here, where the words Ashfields are on the northern side of the river coast here. So entering from the west on this point here, and then following the map border, you can cross a bridge, which is obstructed by the UI here. I don't have any better screenshots at this point, so I'm just going to have to make do with this. There's a bridge right here. You can cross that bridge. There's a couple of watchtowers. You bypass that. You go into the Calamity here, which is basically a wooded area. And then you'll be able to make it to the spawning point. That's the route that I took before, managed to make it, and this was the took that Silver and Steel took, and they also made it, and they managed to get the information on, and then they got jumped and shot. So that was that. Now that was kind of suspicious because in both cases I had managed to get to the spawning points on Ashfields and Red River, and nobody had done anything. And Ian was saying at this point in time that the armor column ran into problems, the kind of problems that shouldn't have been a problem. I'm pretty sure at this point in time, is still under the impression that the wardens got ticked off about got tipped off of the whole operation. And I'm inclined to believe that because they were on us in both cases very, very quickly. Whereas they hadn't even spotted this before when we were doing the recon runs. So that was kind of weird. But that was how the first recon run went. And of course, that was how my second small attempt also went down. The second recon attempt with me, Silver, Ski, and Meh. Yeah, he's the fourth guy. So how we went about that was Silver was having in real life things to deal with, so he couldn't command anymore. So we regrouped at the bats, and then we took my route again. So this is the third time, basically, I'm taking this for the actual operation. But this is the only first time that Silver would have been taking my route. So we inserted here at this exact point. Took this route as it is drawn here. So we coasted along the map border edge. Came down to the heartlands here, stuck to the north. There's a hole in the bulwark right here, so we can bypass. We took that. And the difference here that I made was that instead of crossing straight away into Ashfields, decided to stay in the heartlands on this area, this side of the border basically, and then insert into Red River here. Crossed the bridge, got shot up by the bunker emplacements there, but it was all good. This was the second time I had to make this run, so I was full of confidence because I had done it 4 hours prior, that it could be done then. And props up to Ski and Meh, who had to tag along for this fun ride. they didn't know what was going on, and all they knew was that we were driving in pitch dark, getting shot at by people that we couldn't see or retaliate against back. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Not gonna lie. So we managed to get across. We took this exact route as was, and it was around about this position here actually that I decided to switch targets. Partly because since how Silver and Steel had managed to get to the targeting point and then immediately get jumped on, I mean, I I didn't think that it was wise to go and do it again, because what would be the point? Uh, they already knew, and they also knew exactly where we were going, because we don't have a secondary spotting point planned out. This was the only point that we had planned out. I didn't think that that was a good decision to go back again and try again. So I made the decision to switch targets to the secondary target here, um, and just go for Red River. And this was the final route that we took. And this was also the route that I took for my recon run. We dismount here as to try not tip off the wardens that were here. So this is a problem, like the pros and cons between bringing vehicles and going in on foot. Is that at some point you're going to have to abandon the vehicles, and if there's no place to hide the vehicles, then any warden scouting party that's coming around looking for us, they see colonial vehicles deep behind their lines this far in an area which the announcements say that a nuke is being targeted here. Well, then they're gonna know, and then they're gonna be able to narrow their search pattern down. However, the way I remember it is that I don't think they actually found our vehicles. Um, I think that just because of the layout of the map hex here in Cannon Smoke, it was just a very obvious point for the wardens to come searching for us. I think I'm not entirely sure, but the way that I recall is that what I did was I asked Meh, who had a radio backpack. It was me, Ski, and Meh who had radio backpacks. Um, I told Meh to sit in the bush that was a little bit behind, somewhere at this point here. And basically, he's the insurance policy. So if anything bad happens, we'd have a backup for this backup run that we're trying to do here. And what happened here was that he encountered wardens that came in from the northwest, I believe. So I don't think they actually got tipped off of our vehicles and then found us that way. I think it's just they knew where we were coming, or they knew that it had to be somewhere around this region that we were spotting to fire the nuke at. Either way, they found us and we died. Yep, that's basically what happened there. The only thing I can talk about for that last one there is that we need better like protocol for how to defend the spotter. The way I see it is that at that point when they're already closing in and they have tanks, which they brought a tank to deal with this at this point here for the final run. The way it should be is that because the spotter can't move, everybody else around the spotter should try to make as big as a racket as they can and draw attention away from the spotter. What we tried to do was hide everybody, basically. We wanted everybody to stay hidden and in the bushes and not move. That was probably the biggest mistake. What protocol should have been is that everybody except for the spotter just go out all guns blazing and then try run as far away from the spotter, and that probably would have been better. And for those that were there, know that um, once the cover was blown and the rest of the team started running, the wardens just went after them. They just chased anybody that they found and then tried to kill them. They 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 were just as inexperienced as we were, kind of, because if they knew how the mechanics worked, it was that the spotter is the guy that can't move, he can't react, he can't defend himself. So the guy that's running around is not going to be the spotter. He's not the threat, basically. You still have to look for the guy. And there's a chance that if you are able to have the spotter team go out, make a distraction, and run away, that you force the wardens to go looking somewhere else. At least that's the kind of like logic I can sort of formulate in this sense. To be honest, though, the way that it's conducted here and the time it takes 10 minutes to launch the nuke. For those of us who run logistics, it takes like 12 minutes, 50 seconds to make 4 crates of G-subs. And that's basically a lifetime. 10 minutes is basically a lifetime in this game. Trying to do the sneaky way of small spec ops team to insert behind enemy lines to spot, I don't think is probably the way to go. 10 minutes is way too long. Yeah. So yeah, those are my thoughts. And actually, I do believe that's all I wanted to say. for this after action report. I think I've covered most of the major points I wanted to cover, and I went over all of the very big problems that we ran into. So yeah, that's the end of that. Thanks for sticking around this long if you're still here in the video.